Let me go over some major changes happening to the TSP in 2025. And if you don't know what a TSP is, it is the federal government version of the 401k. And this video may be helpful for someone who may want to join the military or work for the federal government someday. Now, before you say none of this applies to you now, you have to remember that it may still apply to you someday, especially when your income goes up. And that could be when you transition from the military to the federal government, or if you decide to join the private sector one day, okay? The first change that you need to know is that the contribution limit is being increased from $23,000 to $23,500. So for the federal employees who strive to max out their TSP every year, that's $904 every 2 weeks. If you're in the military, serving in the Air Force, Space Force, Navy, Army, Marines, and Coast Guard, then that's $1,959 a month. And if you're over the age of 50, the catch-up contribution limit will remain the same at $7,500. Now, this might be for a very small crowd, but maybe someone you know at work needs to know about this specific rule change. If you or someone you know is between the ages of 60 and 63, your catch-up contribution will go up to $11,250 instead of $7,500. And when you turn 64 years old, the catch-up contribution limit will go back down to $7,500. And it's not uncommon for people in their 60s to work in the federal government unless they're in a field that has a mandatory retirement age. It is a great way to catch up if you're behind on your TSP investments. And you can put the catch-up contribution in either traditional or Roth, regardless of your income, but that is just in 2025, because starting in 2026, if your gross income is over $145,000 in 2026, just the catch-up portion of your TSP contribution has to go into the Roth bucket, which means that you'll have to contribute the catch-up portion of your TSP in after-tax dollars. This means that 2025 is going to be your last year to make traditional catch-up contributions if your income is over $145,000. And keep in mind that the IRS can raise that wage threshold for 2026 because that $145,000 income limit was set for the 2023 wages. It could become $150,000 or maybe even $155,000 by 2026, but I'll keep you posted. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't done that already. So if you're not sure where to look for your wages, that is the most common question that I get. Do I look at gross earnings or do I look at the taxable income? You can look at the Medicare wages and tips, okay? I purposely did not select Social Security because there are some states that do not, and some employees don't take out Social Security wages. Now, that's a topic for another day. So I'm just gonna stick to Medicare wages and tips, okay? So that's gonna be on box 5 of your W-2. And you can look at your W-2 from the previous year. If you have multiple jobs, then you need to add up both W-2 wages from box 5 to see if you're over the $145,000 income threshold. And Section 603 of Secure Act 2.0 states that it's giving every 401k plan a 2-year administrative transition period to start giving out a Roth option. The TSP already has the option to do Roth or traditional, but the IRS is giving every 401k broker 2 years to add the Roth option. So you will have both Roth and traditional by January 2026 for every broker. So if you have a TSP and 401k at the same time, you might be a reservist, you may be a guardsman, and working in the private sector, that should apply to you. And we should also find out what the 2026 wage limit is going to be by October or November 2025. I doubt that it's going to maintain that $145,000 threshold, as I said earlier. I think it's going to increase from the adjusted inflation from 2023 until 2026. So again, if you're over the age of 50 in the year 2026 and your gross wages were $145,000, that $7,500 will need to be in Roth right here, okay? And you cannot put any of those dollars into the traditional or pre-tax dollars. If your wages are less than or equal to $144,999.99, then you have the option to contribute to either pre-tax or after-tax buckets right here, okay? And if you're between the ages of 60 and 63, and your gross wages are $145,000 or more, then you can only put that $11,250 right here in catch-up contributions. Same thing in the Roth bucket of your TSP. If your gross wages are less than $144,999.99. Then you can put that $11,250 in catch-up contributions in either the Roth or traditional bucket of your TSP. This was basically a silent way for the government to raise taxes now for people making over $145,000 or more. And if I'm being completely honest, I love the Roth option, but I do not love the fact that the government took away that option from the American people to choose between Roth and traditional. Unfortunately, putting the employee portion of your wages to your traditional TSP does not lower the gross wages. Okay, so let me go back to this. And so in box 5, if you remember, the gross wages in box 5 are Medicare taxable income. Okay, so if you're making, let's say, $160,000 a year, and you want to put $23,000 to your traditional TSP to lower your taxable income to $137,000. But that does not lower your taxable income for Social Security or Medicare. Okay, so that doesn't lower your Medicare wages and tips. So what you want to look at is your gross earnings and not the adjusted taxable income. And I know this can be confusing, so you can schedule a session with me by visiting FINRA.com/consultation and use the veteran discount if you're a veteran. And here are some additional changes that's already taken place in 2024. But before I get into that, did you know that over 55% of Americans still park their money in a traditional savings account, barely earning any interest? Your cash in a traditional savings account is likely to lose value to inflation every year. So I'm excited to announce that I partnered with public.com on this video, where you can earn an impressive 4.35% APY on your cash that is 10 times higher than a traditional savings account. What I like about public.com's high yield cash account is that it doesn't charge subscription fees, account maintenance fees, or minimum balance fees. You can easily deposit, withdraw, or transfer your cash to another account at any time. So if you have $20,000 in an emergency fund with a traditional savings account earning you 0.02% annually, that's $4 you earn per year. In some places, you can't even buy a sandwich for $4. But with a high yield cash account with a 4.35% interest, you could earn up to $870 in interest in 1 year. What's better, $4 or $870? I'll let you make that decision. So if you want to put your cash to work, you can open up a high yield cash account on public.com/PSY, and that is PSY, or by clicking the link in the description below. Thank you, public.com, for sponsoring this video. 1. Check out the new I Fund. The international fund, and this is not by any means financial advice, the fund is now updated with more diversified international small, medium, and large cap stocks. The new benchmark follows the MSCI All Country World Investable Market Index, excluding the USA, China, and Hong Kong index. So what that means is that it's investing in all those international stocks, excluding the US stocks, Chinese stocks, and Hong Kong stocks. Okay, so if you want more exposure to the international stocks inside your TSP, this I Fund now tracks over 5,000 international stocks with Taiwan Semiconductor, Novo Nordisk, ASML, and Samsung as the top stock holdings. The common argument I hear is that the C Fund already has enough international exposure, but I think this I Fund has even more global exposure to 40 developed and emerging market countries. The international fund has been grossly underperforming other individual funds for several years now. So I like to see how this new benchmark is going to perform in the future. 2. If you're a designated public safety employee, when you start taking money out of your TSP when you separate from service and have 25 years of service under the plan, you will not have to pay the 10% penalty, even if you haven't reached the age of 50 when you separate. So if you become an FBI agent at the age of 23 and you decide to retire 25 years later at the age of 48, you can start taking TSP out without a 10% penalty. You should already know if you're a designated public safety employee anyway. And according to the OPM, you're a public safety employee if you're a federal law enforcement officer, Customs and Border Protection officer, federal firefighter, air traffic controller, nuclear material courier. I'm really curious what they do, or members of the U.S. Capitol Police. And third, you can now roll over your money from your Roth TSP to the Roth Simple IRA or Roth SIPC. And something else that you should be aware of is that starting in 2025, there's going to be a national 401k database that allows you to search for your old 401k plans that you probably didn't even know that existed. What you might want to do is move your old 401k to your current TSP plan. And you also have the choice to move your old 401k, 403b, or 457 to your traditional IRA or Roth IRA when you find your old accounts in the new database. So be sure to check out the database when it comes out in January. But we all know how the government works. They're always going to be delayed anyway. So I would say probably February. But here's some items that are still not implemented with the TSP. Now, I'm not sure when or if they'll ever do it. One, you still do not have the option to put the 5% employer match into the Roth bucket of your TSP at the time I'm recording this video. The 5% employer contribution will go into the traditional portion of your TSP. Your personal contribution, or what we call employee contribution, can be in either traditional or Roth, but the employer contribution has to go into the traditional bucket. What that means is that all of those employer matches will be in pre-tax dollars, and you'll be responsible for paying the taxes when you're retired and start taking distributions from your TSP. And I'm really hoping that the TSP will implement this change one day to allow employees to put their employer match to the Roth bucket every year, even if it means paying the tax up front. Let me know in the comment section down below what your thoughts are on having a Roth option for the TSP employer match. I would figure that it's going to benefit the IRS or the federal government more because it's going to raise the tax revenue if people do choose to fund the Roth option for the employer match. Now, two, the student loan matching still doesn't exist, and this is probably due to the federal funding, and there are a lot of programs that give out student loan forgiveness working in the federal sector. Secure Act 2.0 allows employers to match employees' student loan repayments to their retirement. So, for example, I've seen a client of mine in the past, an employer who matches up to $300 a month into their 401k if the employee's minimum student loan payment amount was $300 a month. And there are a lot of federal employees carrying some type of student loan debt. And I think this could significantly boost their retirement savings while they're paying out their debt. But I doubt that they'll implement this provision anytime soon. But I'm hoping that they do. If the employees are actively paying off their student loans, then I'm all for the agency or the department that you work for to match the student loan payment for up to 5% of the salary. That's just my personal opinion, okay? And with all of this information I just shared with you, log into your TSP account today to find out how much of your money is sitting in Roth and how much of your money is in pre-tax. You need to keep track of your pre-tax and Roth contributions so that you'll know what to do if you decide to move away from the government sector and work in the private sector or the nonprofit sector one day. And if you're looking to invest in your TSP for the long term because you're making a career in the military or the federal government, take a look at your contribution rate. The 5% contribution should be the bare minimum to get the employer match. What you really want to achieve is going from 5% to 15% and then eventually to 25% if you truly want to retire with the same income you have now. You can get your free TSP calculator by visiting FIRESIPC.com/resources to see if you're either ahead or behind on your TSP. Every dollar you don't invest into the TSP is every day you could delay your retirement.